All right, everybody. Good morning, or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. With me, it's just after 12 noon. And thanks for joining us. My name is Bob Buchanan. I am the Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing for RapidScale. And this session today, it'll be, try to keep it 30 minutes or under, but really want to take the opportunity to talk directly to some of our existing customers. Some of you are probably new to RapidScale, maybe leveraging either one or just a few of our services. So really thought this might be a great opportunity to provide some further education on us, but also maybe to talk about why we're seeing so much growth in the market. That is a direct result of some of the market trends and what's happening. And these trends, I think, are likely impacting you as stakeholders and IT leaders in your business. And wanted to describe some of, discuss some of that, discuss some of those observations and challenges, and maybe give you some perspective on maybe how we're allowing and enabling our customers to meet some of those challenges. So with that, the session is referred to as Cloud's March Toward Full Adoption. And we'll get into maybe why I chose that title here in just a moment. But before we actually formally kick things off, I will let everyone know that we do record these, and we do send them out to all attendees along with the actual presentation. So with that, we will jump into it. So think about the title, the cloud kind of movement, if you will. I think a cloud is, I guess it's a debate, right? It's really evolved over time, and here in 2018, we've come full circle to where there are better standards, at least around the definitions and what is meant when someone uses that term. However, there's ambiguity still exists. But I think of it as organizations, or even consumers for that matter, who are consuming IT and technology differently as in direct contrast to traditional IT. So maybe on-demand or utility-based models, and you're consuming it as needed. And the real trailblazers into this space, into the cloud space, were the enterprises. And if you think back to the mid-2000s and the turn of the century, those were the folks that said, you know what, I'm gonna propel and accelerate my leverage of technologies like Amazon's AWS, or what you're seeing with Azure, or maybe even I'm gonna begin outsourcing technology, and I stepped into a co-location type offering, and maybe now I'm dabbling in more of a hybrid type scenario. And what we saw was the SMB market, the mid market, trailed some of that pace, and it's catching up. And today in 2018, the SMB market and the mid market, and by the way, that's exactly where RapidScale's main focus is. We do dabble into the enterprise, but if you look at our customer base, who they tend to be and what that profile is, I think it could be argued it's firmly in the mid market. But all this is causing massive disruption. And if you look at this slide here, just a few concepts to consider, right? We just talked about cloud, but if you think about the impact that AI is now beginning to have, the Internet of Things. Certainly can't forget globalization, mobile, how cybersecurity impacts that. And then think about millennials. And millennials is really an interesting piece here. A few years ago, I think we thought of millennials maybe as college kids or adolescents, and today they're becoming full-fledged empowered workers, and now even leaders in our economy. And as those folks, if they grew up, if you think about a millennial growing up and just leveraging Google or leveraging mobile app, growing up with in the I generation, if you will, and they come into more of a traditional IT environment, and you're still hosting Exchange internally, or you're giving them a laptop that is maybe perhaps archaic and doesn't have all of the applications and modern day next gen kind of functions. It's very difficult for that individual to thrive. And as they get into leadership roles and decision making roles, further stretching the organization, and it's really a dynamic that we're realizing between kind of old world IT, and again, new world digital disruption. So what are the common challenges? We see these all the time, right? How do we scale? I was in a meeting yesterday with a customer, perfect example. They are, I won't get in necessarily to the in-depth specifics, but think of a multi-location medical type practice, dermatologies where they play. Today, they host all their critical infrastructure in a co-location environment. It's managed by an MSP, very limited IT resources, and they're really struggling with real world problems due to growth. They're acquiring other practices, and as they do this, they're bringing on more users, and that physical infrastructure they keep buying cannot scale. So every time they've got to add another practice, 100, 200 more users, I've got to procure and provision and deploy IP, drop another operating system on this environment, add it to my existing maybe EXI virtualization cluster, and all that takes work and manpower, and it takes time. And also, it takes money. And also, it's unpredictable. And it's inefficient. So in the cloud and with RapidScale, with our cloud platform, you can come in and expand those resources on demand and pay for what you consume. So how do we remain secure? Security is a huge topic. Obviously, lots of news or in the news around some of the big events that occur, right? Everyone's familiar with Target and the Equifax issue, and those are the ones that we hear about commonly. But more locally, no one's immune to this. Everyone's under attack. How do I protect, everyone from bringing in their own devices and adding them to my network? How do I protect my data sprawl and leaving the organization and going out to maybe third-party cloud platforms that we don't support? How do I add governance around all of this? Leveraging a cloud provider like RapidScale can help you do just that. How can we remain more competitive? Guys, this is huge. More than ever in a global economy, the SMB and mid-market can now compete with the enterprise. And they can do that because of the efficiencies that these next generation cloud-based technologies offer them. Not only just cost and efficiencies, but time to market, right? How can I get to market faster? How can I obtain computing power that might have not been within my reach just a few years ago and do that efficiently? How can I get access to very talented engineers and administrators that can help me deploy my applications faster, more securely, more efficiently? And then how can we manage IT more efficiently? See it all the time. How can I do this better? And this is really at the C-level, right? Looking down, CFO is saying, you know what, there's a cost equation, there's a total cost of ownership equation. How can we do this better, again, to compete? So how's cloud solving these? And take it away from a RapidScale answer and first focus on what's cloud doing, right? What are the advantages? And here's just a couple stats. I won't read every one of them, but the one that really resonates with me is 94% of SMBs have experienced security benefits in the cloud they didn't previously have with their on-premise or traditional technology approach. And this absolutely contradicts maybe that what I would classify as a misnomer that the cloud isn't secure. And if you think about it this way, guys, who's going to have 2 points, I guess. First one is who's going to have more expertise and more access to best practices? The mid-market company who maybe is focused on their core business, supporting the line of business, and IT seen as a cost center and stretched, or the cloud provider that's supporting hundreds, if not thousands of customers and looking to protect them in an everyday battle against these type of threats? The answer is obvious. And then number two, the biggest challenge with security and managing against these threats is access to talent, quality security engineers. And a lot of those folks have gravitated to the service providers, to the cloud companies, and they're very difficult to find. But that also gives the cloud providers an advantage because, again, they've got to have folks that have seen it before, understand the best practices, and can deliver on those solutions. So where do we fit in? Again, I go back to that comment I made at the beginning of this session. If you're leveraging us for mail and you think of RapidScale as the Office 365 company, we need to change that. If you're leveraging us just for infrastructure as a service, perhaps, I'm hopeful that we can change that. Perhaps you're leveraging us for DR. Maybe we can change that. At the end of the day, there's a comprehensive suite of solutions that we offer, and we do this via a global platform. So today there's 5 enterprise-grade data center environments throughout the world, 3 in the US, 1 in Amsterdam, 1 in Hong Kong. Those environments look identical. If you think about Southwest Airlines, and I use that analogy of deploying 737s to every airport, to every flight, they do that for a reason. It's very efficient. Every pilot can fly every plane, and so forth. Same thing with us, guys. We're building very similar architecture and very like data centers globally. This is all, if you were going to build things based on best practice, highly available, robust, leveraging best of breed technologies, this is exactly how you would do it. So that's what we've done globally on our platform. And then up the technology stack, we're doing everything from, as I mentioned, infrastructure as a service, where your files, your data, and certainly your applications in a virtual environment are highly available and can scale. Turn them up, turn them down, deploy new servers on demand. In addition, and really what we're probably best known for is being a Citrix cloud service provider, deploying and managing our customers' virtual desktop environments. So this is a market that is expected to accelerate double digits over the next 2 to 3 years, according to Gartner. And when you look at the mid-market and the small business, looking at how do I control identity management? How do I control governance? How do I manage my total cost of ownership and reduce risk? And how do I centralize management of my IT assets and gain efficiencies? Virtualizing your desktop environment and leveraging a provider like RapidScale to do that, it meets all those requirements and checks all those boxes. Aside from that, how do I handle disaster recovery, backups, right? How do I maybe improve application performance leveraging technologies like SD-WAN? So that's exactly how we fit in. Get into the next slide here. So what about us and company growth? Who are we? This wasn't a who are we necessarily focused discussion. It was intended to be a broad market discussion, and maybe how we're participating in some of that in that sandbox, if you will, and how we're relevant. But just to pause for a moment, the Vonage acquisition in 2017, really nice acquisition for the business. It certainly allowed us to take on what I would call an underserved customer base from a company that did not focus on these type of services. Vonage obviously being more of a voice organization. These customers were under the legacy iCore group and came over to RapidScale, and it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to allow us to migrate those customers to the RapidScale platform, educate them on how we might be able to help manage some of these challenges and help them to leverage cloud-based and on-demand solutions going forward to meet future needs, right? So 17 also brought significant growth for RapidScale. Raleigh, North Carolina, it's where I actually am based out of, is considered kind of a dual headquarter, if you will. We are based in Irvine, California, but we brought on that Raleigh office a year and a half ago. Our East Coast presence was fairly limited. I think this is relevant, especially if you were one of those legacy Vonage customers. Today we've got over 20 people based here in Raleigh, and we also have an office in Sterling, Virginia. A couple things I'll note from just some of the strategic hiring. We added to our C-level team. Mark Sikowski, who's been with the company almost since its inception, was promoted to our Chief Strategy Officer. He was instrumental in the Vonage acquisition and continues to help with some of our M&A and strategic initiatives going forward. And then Megan Agresta, who was a colleague of mine in a previous life, who we brought over to really help mature us on the finance and administrative side. So kind of back to roadmap for 2008. Guys, you're going to continue to see continuing hiring from us and getting better. Products and services, what I think enhancements you'll see, not necessarily new technologies, but enhancements to existing SD-WAN offering. I'll get into a little bit more of the product portfolio as it exists today, but folks probably don't know RapidScale for SD-WAN per se. Well, I will say this, we're not actually out there selling it standalone very aggressively. What we did find is this type of scenario. Organization has a legacy MPLS network or a disparate network. They like to leverage desktop as a service. There are challenges with both redundancy at some of their sites and looking to also improve and ensure better performance of their application delivery. Being a Citrix CSP, we're able to do just that with their Citrix NetScaler solution, all in an OpEx type financial model, fully managed by RapidScale. You'll also see some security enhancements to the existing portfolio in 2018, so we're really excited about that. And then market trends. You know, how we're staying ahead of the market to ensure that we remain a leader in the space. RapidScale is not a company that's going to be what I would call leading the market in a hey, we were there first. We're the most forward thinking or bleeding edge. We're going to be really looking to serve the brick and mortar businesses that really want to take advantage of cloud-based technologies, but might be stretched thin internally. And those organizations, my guess is they were augmenting IT either towards contractors or maybe an MSP. And we start to look in very, very much like an MSP that delivers all of this 24/7 via the cloud. And then how can you get better aligned with us? 2018, we didn't do this very well in 17. 2018, we're looking at some targeted markets. Some of this has already been scheduled, just not announced, where we're going to have customer event-based roadshows and looking to bring our customers a little bit more together with our internal employees, not just sales, but with our engineers, with some of our pre-sale engineers, some of our executives. We really want our customer base, especially the newer customers, whether that happened through organic growth or M&A, to really get more familiar with who we are as a company, and again, develop on that intimate customer service provider relationship. So if you look at any of our marketing, you'll see these nice little colorful clouds, if you will. Each one of them has a title underneath, and this is core to our products. Simplicity sometimes is ingenious, but we just really wanted to have a simple, clean message to speak to the marketplace. And if you look at Cloud Desktop, primarily powered by Citrix, but we also are a VMware Horizon shop. Then you have our infrastructure as a service, our cloud server environment, or offering, I should say. Furthermore, cloud recovery, disaster recovery as a service, cloud mail, that's our own native kind of mail solution. Office 365, I think everyone's probably familiar with that. And if you think about cloud security, unified security management, what does that mean? It's a combination of a number of different best-of-breed type services. It includes everything from how do I protect my mail from making sure that we're mitigating threat to my email environment. How do I handle or prevent a brute force attack on my application? Maybe I need a web application firewall. How do I ensure that I'm immune to or mitigating risk to denial of service, right? All of that all the way down to something very simple to ensuring that I've got the right policies, rule sets applied to my managed firewall, ensuring that I've got VPN type connectivity, whether you need help with more complex configurations and creating VLANs and NATing. So we do a lot there around security, and it's not just a one-size-fits-all. We just touched on SD-WAN, and then certainly cloud backup. The delineation I like to make is hey, if you've got backups today, that's wonderful. And if you don't, please talk with us, because we got to ensure that that your critical data definitely is backed up, ideally to a remote target. And backups protect you from, I lost this file, or God forbid there was a catastrophic event. I actually can get my data and I can restore it. Your time to restore could vary on a number of different factors. That differs from cloud recovery, right? To where we're actually doing asynchronous replication to a secondary target, and in that scenario, you're looking to really shorten or I guess limit the amount of data you can actually lose, meaning like your recovery point objective, and then making sure that you can recover very quickly, your recovery time objective. Having those servers and that data set back up on the network, accessible within, call it 4 hours, losing less than maybe 15 minutes of data. Those are major differences between cloud recovery and cloud backup. Building your cloud roadmap. So we just did a session a couple weeks ago with several of our technology partners and customers, and we were talking about major objections to cloud. And we talked about security, we talked about cost, and those are certainly can be objections. But in today's world, getting from A to Z is often the biggest. And in this space of lots of options, meaning, RapidScale we're very comfortable in our own skin. We understand the market that we're targeting. We understand what we're really good at, and we look to really educate not only the marketplace but our current customers and how we can serve them. That being said, many of the competitive options out there really lack a good story around how they can help prospective customers move their workloads and data from their current environment or their current cloud provider to ours. And this is absolutely an area where we shine. And it takes a lot of work. Not going to lie, migrations can be messy, so you've got to be good at it. You've got to have a methodology, and you got to be willing to get your hands dirty and get in there and actually manage the full engagement. Often case, there's a reluctance to actually do that because there's some risk involved. And also it's not easy. The easy side of the services, and I shouldn't say easy, but the easier side of the services is just saying, hey, sign this order, come contract with us, and billing will start when you get your stuff over here. Well, if you're targeting the SMB and the mid-market, the customer's then left to say, hey, I love your service offering, but how do I get there? And again, that's exactly where we shine. We will come in with a full project management team, look to do due diligence, and really help that customer create a roadmap led by us to move those applications and workloads directly to RapidScale. So learn from your peers. Wouldn't it be nice to consolidate your physical hardware, your existing virtual environment potentially, and the management of those assets? Is there a desire, and sometimes, by the way, sometimes there isn't, but in many cases, there certainly is, because you can leverage our balance sheet versus your own, and you can recognize the benefits of an operating expense versus leveraging your own capital. Refocus your internal IT team. Have your internal IT team support your line of business, those line of business managers, and support the strategic focus of the organization versus focusing on what I'd like to call some of the plumbing. Allow us to do that, right? For example, are you taking level 1 support calls today? Level 2, level 3, all of the above. You can actually kind of choose what you would outsource to us, right? RapidScale is fully equipped to support a level 3 call, engineer to engineer, fully equipped and staffed to support a level 2 type call, and absolutely thrives in scenarios where we actually take level 1 calls from end users, that we can handle those rudimentary tickets and kind of act as your level 1 help desk. Huge differentiator if that's of interest to you. And all of this is done 24/7, 365, right? again, I won't belabor the point, but consultative approach to migration and the improvement of business efficiencies, especially if you've got remote locations. So I'll give you an example of a customer that some of these services, a good portion of these services tie right into. This is actually a large lumber manufacturer out of the Northeast. This is a customer we brought on about 1.5 years ago. They were being served by a regional MSP, had a very IBM-centric environment. We were engaged to come in and really help them consolidate their IT assets and also consolidate the management of those assets. The end result was about 420 desktops in 27 different locations. Were then managed through a Citrix environment. Primary location was in our East Coast data center footprint. Each one of those 27 locations also, we deployed a NetScaler device, and the head-in for the SD-WAN network was then back to the data center, so traffic was routing back to the data center. Again, we touched briefly on some of the advantages there, including application performance, centralized management, certainly in security. Along with the desktops, about 40 servers came over, I believe it was, that then got dropped into our infrastructure as a service platform. And then we're not only managing up the stack all the hardware in a VMware kind of EXI cluster, that customer has access to a GUI interface for customer self-service and a portal where they can turn down VMs, turn on VMs, IP a VM, put an operating system on it, whether it's Windows, whether it's Linux. In addition, that customer can expand the resource pool. So if they bring on new locations, need to add a test server, an app server, or maybe a database server into production, all of that can kind of be done on demand. So another big, huge advantage here was licensing. And we tend to think about OpEx versus CapEx, sometimes only in a hardware scenario. They really had some complex agreements with Microsoft, and if you're familiar with how they do their kind of perpetual licensing and that classification for Office 365, we moved them to a CSP model, which ended up saving them over kind of the life of the term over $200,000. So thinking about, do I want to buy maybe an E3 or God forbid an E5 and overspend for what I actually need, or do I want to consume based on who I actually need within my organization to consume those resources, being able to turn them up and then turn them down. So great opportunity for us, and a well-served customer that shows exactly the type of solutions that we're delivering to the marketplace. And I'll kind of go back to that customer profile, right? A great company, by the way. A lumber manufacturer is a great business, but I don't think anyone's going to argue it's a technology company. They're simply leveraging technology to run that business and need to do it in a more efficient manner. They've got a limited IT staff and needed help. They were already outsourcing, but again, that local MSP was having trouble scaling. And going back to some of the broader market challenges, how do they handle that in a more efficient manner? So your team, we didn't really get into what my organization looks like, and for the purpose of this call, I'll spare you a lot of those details. But essentially, as my title kind of insinuates, I run the sales side of the business. That includes new customer acquisition, as well as our ongoing account management support and our marketing team. And we've dedicated folks within the organization to support only our customer base. It's a team approach. Our sellers, our sales folks, our channel executives that are out there in the field bringing new customers on remain involved for the life of that customer. But the day-to-day, you know what, I have a new project. I need to ask someone about billing. I am interested in something maybe Bob said on that webinar, and I want to learn more about SD-WAN. Who do I talk to? And Heidi Knowles, covering kind of our eastern half of the United States, and then Ryan Turpin covering the western half of the United States are excellent resources. Every customer has been assigned. Every customer within our portfolio has been assigned to either Ryan or Heidi, and you should certainly have heard from them. If you haven't, here's our contact information. If you haven't heard from them and you want to talk to me, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd love to have a conversation with you and learn more about how we can help. So again, I told you this would be about a half hour. Looks like I went just about a minute over. So there is a chat capability, which I didn't mention. If you may have picked that up during the presentation and you sent in a question, I can kind of check the queue. Otherwise, you can email me directly or email the kind of marketing distro that was on the, I think, slide 2 at the beginning of the presentation. Looks like I got one question, guys, and it was a roadmap question. 2018, can I elaborate more on what technologies we might see from RapidScale versus what's in the portfolio today? You know, like I said, you're not going to see us. I wouldn't call it cutting edge. I think it's we want to deliver very practical cloud-based technologies that our customers can take advantage of. I mentioned SD-WAN, and without going into greater detail, I just think you're going to see further education around SD-WAN and further promotion about our capabilities in that market. I touched on security, as we're confident that practice is only going to get stronger. One thing I didn't mention is in select markets. So, for example, if you're in the DC market, maybe the Raleigh market, our customers, you know, by the time that we leave a customer, and I shouldn't say leave a customer, but sign a customer, and we leave the customer's building with all their technology assets, their applications, their data, their files, and especially if now SD-WAN is involved in that solution, most of their IT assets are remote, and there might be a printer left behind, or a router or a switch, or, you know, the point is there's very limited hardware assets that are left behind. But in some cases, there might be mobile devices, there might be laptops, there might be some different things that these customers are saying, you know what, how can RapidScale help me with on-site support when I need it? And in some of about 3 or 4 strategic markets, we've productized a support model to do just that. And if you're in need of augmentation of some of your on-site support, that's something we definitely could talk with you about, and we see acceleration, especially again in Raleigh, DC, and maybe Southern California, for example, for 2018. So it seems like that's it. If there's more questions, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free, don't be shy, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon, and hope to see you out there in the market. Thank you.